My name is Anita, and I am a leader with CASA, Community Action for a Safe Apartment, located in the Southwest Bronx. We are releasing this video in place of our Saturday monthly Know Your Rights workshop. We will focus on the rights of rent-stabilized tenants in New York City and the changes in the state rent laws enacted in June 2019. While avoiding in-person meetings during this coronavirus pandemic is important to our health, we also know that our work educating ourselves and our neighbors is critical for keeping us safe. Now more than ever, tenants need to know their rights so that they are not taken advantage of in a time of crisis.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Mullins, and I'm a CASA team leader. CASA is a community-based tenant right organization in the Southwest Bronx. We are led by community members who take collective action in fighting for and sustaining safe and affordable housing. We accomplish this through organizing tenants, hosting monthly workshops and membership meetings, and building citywide and state level campaign. Our Justice Court campaign aims to reform NYC courts, challenging dehumanizing and discriminatory practice that pervades the court. One of the recommendations our housing court campaign won was the right to counsel, which was passed in 2017 and grants low-income tenants the right to a free attorney if they are facing eviction. Our RGB campaign targets a group of 9 people appointed by the mayor. This board decides whether or not to increase rent annually for rent-stabilized and other rent-regulated tenants. We were able to win historic rent freeze in 2015 and 2016, and we are pushing for a rent freeze again this year. Our No More MCIs campaign focused on elimination of the unjust rent increase that landlords can charge tenants when they make building-wide repairs. We won some reforms last year, but we won't stop until MCIs and IAIs are fully eliminated. We also fought against the Jerome Avenue rezoning, and we will continue to ensure that the city keeps its promise to the community. We do this work so that our family can stay in our homes and our community thrive. This is our Bronx, and we will fight for it.
Hi, my name is Haiti, and I'm a member of CASA. I'm here to talk to you today about rent-stabilized tenants' rights. In New York, there are 2.5 million rent-stabilized tenants. The South Bronx has a very large share of rent-stabilized housing, which means that we have a particular set of rights as tenants. How do you know if you're a rent-stabilized tenant? In general, you're rent-stabilized if your building was built before 1974, your building contains more than 6 apartments, and you were paying less than $2,774 in rent in June 2019. If you moved into your apartment before 1974, you may be one of the fewer numbers of rent-controlled tenants. It should also say so at the top of your lease. If you're not sure whether you're rent-stabilized, you should call the New York State Division of Homes and Community Renewal, also known as DHCR, at 718-739-6400 to get your rent history. Why does it matter whether you're rent stabilized? Rent stabilized tenants have the rights that market rent tenants don't have. Some of these rights include the right to a stable rent. Your landlord cannot decide how much to raise your rent. It is the Rent Guidelines Board, a group of 9 people appointed by the mayor, who decide whether or not and by how much your rent will increase every year. Normally, this is a small percentage. This year's rent increases are 1.5% for a 1-year lease and 2.5% for a 2-year lease. You can influence how much your rent will go up by testifying at public hearings. You also have the right to a renewal lease. Your landlord has to offer you a 1 or 2 year lease renewal. It's your choice. They cannot decide that they no longer want to rent to you. You have the right to ask the state, DHCR, if you are paying the legal, correct rent for your apartment. You have the right to be compensated if you are being overcharged on your rent. You also have the right to have your rent reduced for lack of services. You can apply for an individual or building-wide rent reduction with DHCR. You have succession rights. If the leaseholder of a rent-stabilized apartment moves out or passes away, their close family member may be able to inherit the apartment from them if they've been living in the apartment for over 2 years, or only 1 year if the leaseholder is over 62 years old or disabled. Tenants in New York have other rights as well, regardless of what type of housing they live in. You have the right to a livable, safe, and clean apartment. This is called the warranty of habitability. You have the right to sue your landlord in housing court for lack of repairs. You have the right to due process. Only a judge can evict you. You do not have to move out just because your landlord says so. They have to take you to court first. You have the right to organize. If you are having issues in your apartment, your neighbors are likely facing the same thing. You have the right to hold meetings in the common areas, pass out flyers, and go door to door educating your neighbors. There is strength in numbers. While there are many rights that belong to all tenants, being a rent-stabilized tenant gives you additional protections to be able to exercise and form a tenants association with your neighbors to get repairs. Your landlord can't decide to retaliate by not offering you a renewal lease or hiking up your rent. These rights are an important foundation for being able to demand safe and decent living conditions. But many people in our community still pay high rents and live in terrible conditions. This is why we continue to fight for more tenant protections.
Hello and welcome to our Know Your Rights workshop. My name is Lucette. I am a member of CASA, also a tenant association leader and organizer. Also joining us today is Elias. Say hello, Elias. Hi. Oh, he's saying hello. He's joined by his supporters. He might have some commentary later on. So now we're going to turn it back over to me. Okay, so today I will be talking about rent law victories. Rent law victories, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019. In June 2019, we seized an important political opportunity. Thanks to the efforts of tenants across the state, we were able to pass the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019, significantly expanding the rights of rent-stabilized tenants in New York. Every 4 years, the state rent laws expire and have to be renewed. This means that for decades, tenants would go to Albany every 4 years just to try to maintain the rights of rent-stabilized tenants. Many battles were lost to landlords, and tenant protections were weakened over the years so that the landlords had more opportunities to raise our rents. Last summer, however, CASA joined the Upstate Downstate Housing Alliance, which brought together diverse communities across the state who are negatively impacted by the housing crises. With this powerful coalition, we are able to make the rent laws permanent and won some of the strongest tenant protections in New York history. The changes mostly impacted rent-stabilized tenants, giving them more protections against predatory landlords. These changes include elimination of vacancy decontrol. This means your apartment will always be rent stabilized, no matter how much rent goes up. Landlords used to be able to remove apartments from rent stabilization once the rent passed the threshold of $2,774. Another change is elimination of vacancy bonus. So in the past, landlords were able to increase the legal rent of an apartment up to 20% after a tenant moved out. Now the landlords will no longer be able to collect a vacancy bonus. This means they have less incentive to try to kick you out. Preferential rents became permanent. This is huge. Almost 30% of New York rent-stabilized tenants have preferential rents, meaning they pay less than the legal rent for their apartment. Now, preferential rents will always be permanent as long as you continue to live in the same apartment. Landlords have to continue to offer 1 or 2 year lease renewals and can only increase rents during the lease renewal process, according to what the New York City Rent Guidelines Board decided. Tenants have 6 years instead of 4 to file a rent overcharge complaint. If your landlord has been charging you more than the legal rent or making you pay unfair fees, increases on rent-controlled apartments will be limited. For rent-controlled apartments, landlords still must apply for rent increases, which must be the lower between 7.5% and or the average of the last 5 years of RGB increases. So 0.85% for 1-year leases and 2.2% for 2-year leases. Also, no more fuel cost adjustments. Major capital improvements and individual apartment increases were reformed. Unfortunately, landlords are still allowed to collect rent increases for building-wide renovations and repairs, as well as make upgrades to individual apartments. However, the law now requires DHCR to create a schedule of costs and puts limits on the amount landlords can claim. In addition, DHCR must create a new use life schedule of what is allowed as an MCI or IAI. For MCIs, there is a 2% cap so that the tenants are protected from sudden rent hikes. So DHCR will now audit 25% of MCI applications and can deny an MCI application if there are open BNC violations. Tenants now have 10 days instead of 5 to respond to an eviction notice. Other cities across New York can now opt in to create rent stabilization laws so that tenants in increasingly expensive cities upstate, like Albany and Rochester, can have the protections of rent stabilization. There were many other reforms that will benefit tenants when they are renting, regardless of whether they are rent stabilized. Landlords may now be prohibited from creating a tenant blacklist, from charging unjust late fees, so charging high fees for rental applications, and can only collect 1 month for security deposits. Thank you, and I'll now turn this over to Haiti.
Hey, it's Haiti again. Just want to remind you that the fight continues. These are amazing wins, but we didn't win everything we wanted. CASA, along with the Upstate Downstate Alliance, are now fighting for a New York Homes guarantee and pushing DHCR to make sure the new laws are implemented fully. We are fighting for implementation and enforcement of the new laws, including fully funding DHCR with $500 million so that they can carry out the new laws effectively. Universal rent control, which includes fully eliminating MCI and IAI rent increases and passing good cause eviction so that the protections rent-stabilized tenants have are extended to all tenants. Investment in social housing, which means fully funding NYCHA and building more permanently affordable and democratically controlled housing. Taxing the rich to fund the New York Homes guarantee, ensuring all residents of New York are housed.
In the face of the coronavirus crisis, CASA and the Housing Justice for All Coalition are focusing our efforts on fighting to pass a suspension on rents, mortgages, and utility payments for the whole state of New York. You can sign the petition at bit.ly/NoRentNY or take action through bit.ly/Cancel Rent Toolkit. We have already won a 90-day eviction moratorium effective through June 20th because of public pressure from tenants. Now let's make sure that tenants don't lose their homes once the courts reopen by demanding that Cuomo cancel rent payments. If you are a tenant in the Southwest Bronx and would like to get involved in CASA's work, please reach out to us. We are on social media at CASA Bronx. You can email a.willis@newsettlement.org or call 718-716-8000, extension 180, to learn how you can join our fight for safe and affordable housing. CASA
Power!